You're not stuck because you're lazy, unlucky, or somehow broken. You're stuck because your current system is perfectly designed to keep you exactly where you are. And until you understand that, nothing changes because every day, you wake up thinking motivation is the missing piece when in reality, structure is the problem. And the misunderstanding quietly traps you in a loop where you try harder, you burn out, you reset, and you repeat, which feels like effort, okay? But produces zero real progress. So let's get brutally honest about what actually is happening. You have goals, maybe big ones and maybe small ones, but your daily actions don't consistently align with them. Not because you don't care, but because your environment, your habits and maybe your thinking patterns are misaligned. And the misalignment beats the motivation every single time. So even on days you feel fired up, you might do something productive, but the moment that feels fades you slightly right back into default mode. And default mode is where your current life lives, meaning if your default habits are weak, inconsistent, or reactive, your results will always reflect that no matter how much you want it. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think they need more discipline or more hustle, more grind, but what they actually need is fewer decisions and better systems because every time you rely on willpower, you're gambling and eventually you will lose that bet. So the real question isn't how do I try harder? It's how do I make progress inevitable? And that starts with identifying the invisible anchors and holding you in place. The first one is unclear targets because if your goal is vague like make more money or get in shape or be successful, your brain has nothing concrete to execute. So it defaults to comfort, clarity, and its power because it turns ideas into instructions. Instead of get in shape, it becomes workout 4 times a week for 45 minutes. Instead of make more money, it becomes create one income producing asset in 90 days. And clarity removes the hesitation, and hesitation is where procrastination lives. And the second anchor is overconsumption too. You're taking in more information than you're applying. Like scrolling, watching, learning, or planning, but not executing. And it feels productive because your brain gets a dopamine hit from the new ideas. But without the action, it's just a mental clutter, and knowledge only becomes power when it's used. Otherwise, it becomes a sophisticated form of procrastination. And the third anchor is fear disguised as logic. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time and the perfect plan and more confidence. But underneath that is fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of wasting effort. And here's the truth there's no version of success that doesn't include looking stupid at some point. So if you're trying to avoid that, you're also avoiding progress. And the fourth anchor is your environment. And this one is massively underrated, okay? Because you can't expect to build a focused, disciplined life inside a chaotic, distracting environment. And if your phone is always within reach, if your space is cluttered, if the people around you don't support growth, you're constantly fighting uphill. And eventually you give in, not because you're weak, but because friction is too high. So instead of blaming yourself, you need to redesign your environment so the right actions are easier than the wrong ones. And now, once you understand what's keeping you stuck, the next step is fighting it or fixing it. And this is where most people overcomplicate things. They try to overhaul their entire life overnight, which never works because it's not sustainable. Real change comes from controlled, repeatable actions that compound over time. So, step one is build a non negotiable baseline, not a perfect routine, just a minimum standard that you hit every day, no matter what. This could be 30 minutes of focused work on your main goal, a short workout, or a daily skill practice. The key is consistency, not intensity, because intensity fades, but consistency builds momentum. And the momentum is what eventually makes things feel easier. And step two is remove the friction. If something you need to do feels harder to start, make it smaller and simplify it more. If you want to work out, lay your clothes out the night before. If you want to create content, open your workspace ahead of time. If you want to learn a skill, have your materials ready. And it's easier it is the easier it is to start, the more likely you are to follow through. And starting is always the hardest part. Step 3 is limit your focus too. You don't need 10 goals. You need one or two priorities that actually matter. Like spreading your energy across too many things guarantees the mediocre results in all of them. Focus creates the progress because it allows the depth instead of constant switching, which kills the momentum. Step 4 is tracking your action, not just outcomes, because outcomes are delayed, but actions are immediate. If you only focus on results, they'll get discouraged quickly. But if you track your effort, like days worked, reps completed, hours practiced, you create a feedback loop that keeps you engaged. And over time, those actions produce results, whether you feel like it or not. And here's step 5. It's build the identity. This is where things shift from temporary change to permanent growth. Instead of saying, I'm trying to work out, you become someone who trains regularly. Instead of, I'm trying to make money, you become someone who builds income streams. Identity drives behavior because you naturally act in alignment with who you believe you are. And every small action reinforces that identity. Now, here's the part, though, that most people don't want to hear, though, okay? Progress is going to feel slow at first, painfully slow, because you're breaking patterns that have been running for years, maybe decades, and expecting instant results is what causes most people to quit early. They don't see the change fast enough, so they assume it's not working, when in reality, they just haven't stuck with it long enough. Success is not about massive breakthroughs, it's about the small wins stacking consistently over time. And eventually, those small wins create a tipping point where things start to accelerate. But you only get there if you don't quit during the boring phase. And the boring phase is where most people fall off because it's not exciting, it's not dramatic, it's just showing up and doing the work again and again. And even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's what separates people who stay stuck from people who move forward. Now let's address the motivation because it's probably the thing that you think you need more of. The motivation is unreliable. It's based on emotion, and emotion fluctuates constantly. So if your progress depends on motivation, it's always to be inconsistent. Instead of chasing motivation, you need to build systems that work regardless of how you feel. That means having set times, clear tasks, reducing the decision so even on low energy days, you still make progress. Maybe it's not as much, but enough to maintain the momentum. And momentum is everything because once you have it, things that used to feel hard start to feel normal. And when something becomes normal, it no longer requires as much effort. It becomes part of who you are. And that's when the real change happens. Another key piece is accountability, too. Doing everything alone makes it easier to quit because no one sees you slipping. So, whether it's a friend, a coach, or even a public commitment, having some form of accountability increases follow through because it adds a layer of pressure, not in a negative way, but in a way that keeps you aligned with your intentions. And finally, you need to redefine what stuck actually means. Because being stuck doesn't mean you're incapable, it means you're repeating patterns that no longer serve you. And patterns can be changed, but only if you're willing to be uncomfortable long enough to replace them. Because growth always requires discomfort. There's no version of progress that feels easy all the time, but the discomfort of growth is temporary, while the discomfort of staying stuck is permanent. So you have to decide which one you're willing to live with. Because at the end of the day, your life is not shaped by your intentions, your thoughts, or even your goals. It's shaped by what you do consistently. And if that, what you're doing isn't getting you where you want to go, then something has to change. Not someday, not when you feel ready, but now. Because the longer you wait, the more those patterns solidify and the harder they are to break. So start small, stay consistent, and remove the friction. Focus on your energy and build systems that make progress automatically. Because once you do that, you won't just feel like you're moving forward. You will be. And that's the difference between staying stuck and finally breaking out of it. Thanks for watching today. If you found value in today's video, please subscribe. We're looking to build this channel, and without subscriptions, we can't do that. So a subscription would be highly appreciated. And also, comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. I respond to all positive comments, and all the negative ones you can just keep to yourself. Also, check out this video to your right. It can also help you on your journey as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.